I only have vague memories of March. I mean, I remember that I looked at a calendar at some point and it said March in big, bold letters, so I'm sure it was there, but I don't really have much memory of the things I did then. Most days just blend into each other. Wake up, eat whatever is for breakfast, preferably nothing with eggs in it. Except cake. Cake is acceptable egg-based food, but you don't usually get that for breakfast. Unless it's your birthday. My birthday is in August, so I definitely wasn't eating cake for breakfast in March. What else? There was school. Middle school. At least I think there was. I definitely sat in a chair with other kids and tried to shrink down into the floor. Sometimes I had to pick eraser shavings out of my hair thanks to the person behind me. I remember that. But maybe that was April. Or January. Really, it was all the time, so it was probably March too. What was his name? Tommy? Jake? I don't remember that. Oh well, he was a jerk, whatever his name was. And then there was all the time I spent reading. Mostly books on witchcraft and demonology. I got them from the Winslow Library. Most of them were garbage. I thought witchcraft books would be about spells and broomsticks, but they're all about communicating with trees and animals. I don't really care about those things. I mean, I care about animals, but I want to pet them, not try to go on spirit walks with them. I couldn't find a single book about a summoning spell. Just a little information on seances. A seance is like a party where people hold hands and try to talk to ghosts. I can tell you, they're baloney. Ghosts don't show up when you call or walk around the place like living people. Most of them lie in their graves inside their bodies, waiting for some special day when an angel comes to take them. And sometimes they get recruited by supernatural people like Hecate who live in the Vale to drive you around, but that's only if you're me. But if you're not me and you're trying to talk to your Uncle Mark who died of a heart attack 20 years ago, you're not going to get a hold of him. The psychic is just pretending to summon him so you'll pay them for the warm feeling it gives you. Maybe I should write a book on ghosts. Lily Madwhip's Book of Ghostology. Demons, on the other hand, they can be summoned. Most books on demons just talk about them like they hang around the same as ghosts and make people do bad things. Pastures told me, though, that demons work in the pit. That's what he calls hell. He doesn't call it hell, he calls it the pit. I guess because it's a pit. Demons are servants, and they do what they're told, but they also got minds of their own. So when they aren't turning people into weeping trees or tearing the bark off them or stepping onto the heads of people who are buried up to their chins in boiling poop, demons like to get into mischief. If you can get one to come to you, they are actually supposed to be able to help cut corners when it comes to life and death and such. The only problem is, it's kind of frowned upon to make deals with them. At least that's what the books say. Pastor wouldn't talk much about them before. He just said to leave them alone because they have jobs, and it'd be like going to my mom's office and constantly asking her for stuff when she's trying to execute people. But see, that's why I wanted to talk to one. I can't bother my mom at work because my mom is dead. And my parents aren't in their bodies laying in their graves like Roger. I don't know why, but the angels took them. They let them visit me one last time when I was in the hospital. Promised they'd get to come see me again. They never did. They're gone somewhere, and I need to know where. That's why I needed a demon. I'm not asking Pasher. He's the reason my parents are dead. He and all the rest of them. They told me to tear the veil when they could have fought Samuel. And then I did, and they went and fought him and abandoned me anyway. They dropped me on a beach, let loose those crispy, no-head monsters loose, and then told me to just use Jophiel's totem, which killed everybody. And Pasher had to have known what would happen. He knows everything. Which means he let it happen.
"What are you doing?"
asks Furfur. Furfur happens to be one of those demons I was talking about. I guess I summoned him months ago, but he ended up in Ohio somewhere because I'm new to this whole summoning thing and then had to hike his way out to where I live, making deals with people along the way. He was working with David Clark to get to me. I don't know what deal he made with David, though. I suspect it has something to do with pasture, since that's all David seems to want to talk about.
Earth to Lily. I said, what are you doing?
I'm thinking.
Well, how about you think about getting up off the floor and let's get on with this? I've been rather looking forward to bonding with you.
What do you mean, bonding? I keep lying on the floor. The tiles are nice and cool on my back. And this is a small bathroom. It smells like baby powder.
That's how this works,
Furfur says. Right now he's a shadowy version of me sitting on the toilet. Not using the toilet, just sitting on it. I don't even think shadows have to pee. If they did, the world would be soaked.
We're making a binding contract. I help you get what you want, and in return, I get what I want.
Furfur has been hiding in a stuffed bunny, kind of like I've got Meredith packed in a stuffed cat. I wonder what it is with stuffed animals that they're so good at housing spirits. Maybe the stitching? Pillows have got stitching too. Can you trap a spirit in a pillow? I wouldn't be able to sleep on a pillow like that. It'd probably keep punching me in the back of the head or waking me up or something. Or worse, it'd try to smother me. I tilt my head back and look at Furfur upside down. I like to look at the world upside down sometimes. What is it that you want?
Me?
Furfur doesn't have a face, but his voice sounds surprised. He may just be faking, though.
Nobody's ever asked before. They always just assumed I wanted their soul.
Do you want my soul? He's not getting that, but it can't hurt to let him think he is. You just gotta be sure to say things very precise when making deals. Demons stick to their words very carefully. Furfur snorts.
No. I've got too many souls I deal with in the pit as it is. And that's the thing. I want a break. I don't want to be down there anymore. You think because I was made for the pit that I enjoy it down there? Hell no! We were created with senses just like you and David. And why? Why give us the ability to touch, to taste, to hear, and then trap us in the darkness as far from heaven's throne as possible?
I don't know.
Somebody wanted us to know what we were missing. 23 years ago, 5 months and 13 days, I ripped the tongue off a man who believes he should be punished for his lifetime of lying. And do you know what I tasted on it? Strawberries. I had torn the memory of them right off him. I've never tasted a strawberry before, but I knew instantly what it was.
Oh. This is a very disturbing story. So you want more strawberries?
I want to taste everything.
He claps his hands.
I want to taste ambrosia, I want to snort the honey right off of a bee's ass, and I want to feel the light.
How can I help you get those things? I ask, sitting up.
You're going to do what you do best. You are the knife that cuts the veil.
Oh, Lord, not this again.
You can get me inside. Do you know what it's like in there? It's anything you can imagine.
The veil's not that great, really. I sigh and stand up. Furfur stands up, too. We stand beside each other and look in the mirror. In the mirror, I look like a shadow, but Furfur has my reflection. It's mostly doors and darkness. Furfur moves closer. My arm hairs prickle up like when I rub my feet on the carpet, just before touching something metal and electrocuting myself. My arm gets cold. I rub it with my other hand and feel goosebumps. In the mirror, our reflections overlap.
Well then, once I have your power, we can use it to find your parents, and then I'll spend a few eternity among the doors and the darkness.
Furfur steps fully inside me. My heart starts racing. It hurts my chest. I press the palm of my hand into it to try to slow the beating down, but it does no good. Take your hand off. My mouth says in my voice, you're not going to die. It feels like I am. I also say with my mouth. Okay, I'm talking to myself. Grab the rabbit. I pick up the old mushy bunny. It's soaked with David Clark's blood. I squeeze it. Or rather, Furfur squeezes it.
The blood leaks out and runs down my arm. Furfur lifts my arm up and licks it with my tongue. I can taste it on my tongue. Ugh, yuck. I hope he doesn't have harpies or something. Furfur says, and then grins at me with my own mouth. A little juice to get us going. Gross. So, now we go out and kill everybody? I ask timidly. I gasp, or rather, Furfur gasps. I gotta get this right. It's Furfur inside me. We're both looking out through my eyes. I can feel him kinda in my brain like another voice talking over my thoughts. And then my mouth opens and those other thoughts spill out without me wanting them to. So in a way, I know what he's going to say before he says it. Aren't you morbid? Furfur chuckles. We can go out there and splatter everyone up the walls if that's what amuses you. That is not what amuses me. I like Sunday morning newspaper comics like The Far Side. My favorite is this one where a bunch of big cats are eating and one starts talking and laughing so hard an antler came out of its nose. I wonder, since I just tasted that blood, since Furfur just tasted that blood, if I laugh, could blood come out of my nose? I start walking out the door. Not willingly. It's kind of like being dragged out by my mom. Like when she wanted to go clothes shopping at Sears and I just wanted to catch frogs down by the river in the woods back behind our house. Nope, no frogs. Gotta go try 100 different pairs of the same pants. Except in this case, I may be about to go splatter 100 different people up the same wall or something. Hold up, I say. I try to turn around and smack into the door frame. Furfur wheels me back around and starts walking out into the hall. I changed my mind, I squeak. I try to grab at the doorknob and reel myself back in, but my left hand slaps my right hand away. I didn't. Furfur forces me to smile. We walk into the Donovans' living room. David Clark is standing across the way with his mother. I can hear my heart beating so loudly I expect it to make the room shake. It's a weird feeling, hurting someone in the heat of a moment. You don't really have time to feel anything. But when you're standing there across the room from them and they're not threatening you with a hammer and you have time to think, the idea of hurting or even killing them turns your stomach into knots. Bunches of knots. I only know how to do one knot, and that's the one where the rabbit comes out of the hole and around the tree. I don't think you can do that with a stomach. You kind of have to have an end somewhere, and stomachs don't have ends. They got throats and guts. There she is, David says, putting his hands on his hips like he's not only forgiven me for punching him in the balls, he's down for another round. Look, I'm sorry it went down like this. He's talking at me, but I'm not really listening. I'm too busy picturing a box in my mind and trying to stuff Furfur down into it. Furfur doesn't seem to even notice I'm stuffing him in the box. Isn't that what you're supposed to do when you got someone else living in your brain? You mentally imagine a box or something and lock them away? Well, I got news for you. It's not working. I understand, I say. Wait, what? What do I understand? No. Please repeat what you said. I wasn't paying attention. I try to ask David to repeat himself, but it doesn't come out of my mouth. So you've got Furfur now? No, he's got me. Now we go to your place and get Pasher. Furfur chuckles. It's creepy hearing it in my voice. Change of plan. He lifts up my arm and clenches my hand into a fist. Suddenly I realize the heart I'm hearing beating isn't my own. It's the house. It's Mrs. Donovan, whose remains start in the basement but have somehow spread all through the walls and floors and ceilings. She's everywhere. Somehow, she's become the house. I don't understand what Furfur did to her, but she's all around us. And just as quickly as I realize she's there, she's always been there. The walls, they start bleeding. Everything around us turns red. It happens very quickly. It's like someone unraveled Mrs. Donovan like a Christmas sweater you got from your drunk Uncle George that you never want to wear, so you hide it by pulling it apart and then winding the thread up into a ball and poof. Ugly sweater gone. Except now someone is re-knitting the sweater that was Mrs. Donovan, but not into a sweater and not into Mrs. Donovan either. Furfur stitches her together. He's done this sort of thing for eons. Or more. Decades.
He's done it all his life, tearing people apart and putting them back together. He knows how to turn a person inside out. And I can see how it's done inside my head because he knows it and he's inside my brain. I know how simple it is to flick your wrist and split a person in half like chopping a warm block of cheese with a sharp knife. It's awful. It's so gross. And I can see everything that makes Mrs. Donovan, and I can see what Furfur is twisting her into. Two formless, pulpy masses. They swell up out of the blood and gore that's running out of the walls. Have you ever watched a movie while you rewind the tape? Now imagine you're rewinding a movie where someone was melting and then the puddle they melted into got slurped up by the room. That's what this looks like. Like the walls are barfing up blood and flesh and it's rewinding into two twisting, stretching, popping, and snapping dogs. They blink open black empty eyes.
Bloodhounds,
Furfur says inside my head. David's mom screams and throws her hands up to her face. My living room! Davy, they've ruined my living room! David isn't listening. He's staring at the dogs in shock. His sapphire eyes look full of panic. Furfur! He yells. I think he thinks Furfur is still in this sopping, wet, stuffed rabbit that seems to be glued to my shoulder. What is this? I'm giving you what you wanted, Furfur says out of my mouth. He makes me whistle, which is actually pretty cool because I've never been able to whistle before. I always tried it, but just couldn't do it. I just blow between my lips and look like a fool. Okay, Pooches. Sicker. The glistening, wet, bloody doggies curl their lips back into snarls. Everyone in the room stops moving. Nobody except Furfur knows what's going on. Well, okay, Furfur and the dogs that were Mrs. Donovan, they seem to know exactly who her is. And that's apparently David's mom, because they leap at her, splattering blood across the carpet that's never coming out. Trust me, I know. One latches onto Mrs. Clark's leg right at the knee. I hear this nasty crunching sound as it clamps down and crushes her knee with its jaw. Mrs. Clark's face is just a blank slate with a round O of a mouth hanging open. You ever heard the term eyes bugging out? Well, her eyes are bugging out. They look about to pop out of her skull and dangle on cords like a cartoon character. She screams this shrill, ear-bleeding wail, and then the second dog reaches her upper body and bites down on her neck. She disappears under both dogs with a flail of her arms. Her scream quickly turns into that gurgling sound people make when they're using mouthwash. David grabs his hair and tears at it frantically. Mother! He shouts. His feet do a tippy-tap dance that I personally reserve for when I'm really excited, but I know other people use it when they're panicking. Mother! He can actually get his voice really up there. It manages to drown out some of the tearing and ripping sounds the dogs are making. Something else high-pitched squeaks. Furfur doesn't even notice it because he's too busy smiling and watching the Mrs. Donovan dogs kill David's mother. I notice, though, and manage to make my right eye swivel just enough to see a small shadow moving behind the sofa. It hurts to make just one eye move, though, so I stop. I know what the squeak was, but I can't think about it or Furfur might know too. This is what you wanted, Dave. Furfur chuckles. David clutches his shirt with his fist like he's trying to lift himself up off the floor. I can hear his heart going 88 miles per hour. He's going to have a heart attack before he even finishes puberty. His breath is ragged and gasping. How would you even know what I wanted? He shouts at us. Behind him, one of the dogs snaps part of Mrs. Clark loudly with its jaws. He flinches at the sound. Furfur peels the wet rabbit off my shoulder and tosses it on the floor at David's feet, and then he makes me sweep my arms up and down my sides. The deal was you bring me to Lily, and once we have her power, we take revenge on the person who murdered your father. I don't have her power! David huffs louder and louder. If he was a wolf, he'd be able to blow down even the house made out of bricks. And my mother didn't do it. You did. She did. He points angrily at me. Furfur chuckles. No, I have her power. And I never said Lily killed your father. I simply implied that her actions led to his death. Which is technically true. since if she hadn't summoned me, I wouldn't have come into contact with Jackson Talbot, the gentleman whose soul resided in your mother's body and who took your father's life."
"What?"
David's voice sounds lost. He looks ready to strap himself into a jacket with long sleeves and walk himself into Sunnydale. I'm so utterly confused I have considered doing it myself. I wish there was popcorn here in my brain so I could have something to munch on while watching all this. "I wish I had some popcorn," Furfur says, then shakes his head to drive my thoughts out. We both stumble back a moment. "Oh, no, sorry." "Oh, it's cramped in here." David looks back and forth between us and the two dogs growling and chomping on the remains of the lady we both thought was his mom. "You don't remember Mr. Talbot, do you, Dave?" Furfur rubs my chin with his hand. I wonder if he's used to having a beard, because that's something people with beards tend to do. My dad tried to grow a beard once, but it only grew out in parts, and he stopped when my mother joked about him looking like he got in a fight with a lawnmower. "Mr. Talbot worked at a dealership you and your parents stopped in while car shopping months back. He and I had just become acquainted, and after seeing her that day, he told me how his one wish was to have your mother. But he only desired her for her body. He was a very small-minded man, thinking with his pitiful hormones, so I told him he'd have to find some way to get your father out of the way, but that I'd make sure he had your mother, or her body at least." One of the dogs burps. I shudder, thinking of being eaten by a dog. I wonder where my soul would end up if an animal ate me. When people rot away in their coffins, do their souls end up sharing bodies with worms and flies? Ow! Furfur pinches my cheek and slaps me. It stings and makes my right eye well up with tears. "Shit, this girl can't focus for 5 seconds," he says to David. David grits his teeth. His whole body is trembling. You promised me Pasher!" Furfur points at him accusingly and then waggles his fingers. "No, I didn't. I told you about the totems and Lily, but I never promised you you'd get your hands on it. You simple child, you read too much into things." I see David's fist. He's trying to hide it at his side, but since I notice it, Furfur notices it too. I also realize he's put one foot back to brace himself. Furfur says, but it's too late. David lurches forward and brings his arm up to hit us. Furfur flicks my wrist. Remember what I said earlier about a warm block of cheese? I wasn't kidding. The fingers on David's right hand shear away as if they were glued on by a 5-year-old. David near finishes the swing. His fist doesn't really exist anymore since you need fingers to form a fist, and his fingers just scattered across the carpet. He screams and falls to his knees, clutching his hand as blood starts running out of the stumps where his fingers used to be. I feel like vomiting, but my stomach is empty, so I just gag. Furfur doesn't stop me from doing it. I think it amuses him. After the feeling goes away, he kneels next to David and puts my hand on his shoulder. "Pick up your little digits and go," he says. "There's nothing left for you here." He squeezes David's shoulder. I can feel my fingers digging into the meat. I try to pull away, but Furfur grits my teeth and fights back. "If I ever see you again, I'll make myself a 3rd pooch." I try talking to Furfur inside my head. "You can't let him go like this. We need to help him. Otherwise, that's how villains are made." I can feel him looking back at me, like my eyeballs have rolled around inside my sockets and are looking at me inside my own brain. What's wrong with a villain? Every story needs one. I've already got like 2 or 3 villains in my life. Wait, let me count. Felix? He counts as one, even though I think he hates Meredith more than me. And then, of course, there's Lisa Welch. And Samuel? Hecate? She counts. Or should it be Oh No? I really have too many people who hate me. I guess now there's David to add to the list. David is sobbing and barely able to stand up. I watch him pick up one of his fingers. I want to help him pick them up, even if I can't put them back on his hand. If he gets to a hospital fast enough, maybe he can get them sewn back on. Let this be a lesson, Furfur says with a voice full of smirk. Revenge is a terrible thing to wish for. I imagine him as Lisa Welch, grinning at me with her stupid, perfect teeth. These two would probably love each other. Heck, they'd get married if that sort of thing was allowed. Lisa and Fur up in a tree. Kissing. He shakes the song out of my head and then makes me stand up and walk into the kitchen. We look around the room. There's still blood on the floor from the Mrs. Donovan mushroom incident. There's also bloody handprints on the refrigerator and the countertop. Sadly, it looks better than the living room at the moment. Cookie? Fur asks, picking one up off the floor. Those aren't cookies, those are Fig Newtons, I tell him. Why does nobody understand this? Fur moves the Fig Newton near my mouth and then drops it back on the floor. They're spiked anyway. Yeah, I know. He entwines my fingers and cracks my knuckles. It hurts. Well now, let's get you home. I'll bet the lakes are worried about you. We mustn't keep them waiting.
Hey there kids, it's me, MrCreepyPasta, and I wanted to wish you a very well, we're getting close to October. Are you as excited as I am? Also, thank you for watching tonight's video, or listening to tonight's episode of the podcast, if you're listening on Spotify. We're getting further and further into the fall, and closer to those Halloween horror months, which means that if you want to find your nice Halloween horror audiobook to listen to this year, check out audible.com and look for MrCreepyPasta, because I got a whole bunch of books over there. Books like Tales from the Gas Station. Also, I want to give a very big thank you to all of my Patreons over there on Patreon, because you guys have helped me out quite a bit. I'm not even quite a bit. You guys are honestly, you guys pulled me out of an incredibly dark place when I first had to look at moving and all of the demon stuff that YouTube does, and thank you guys very dearly for all the help that you've given me. People like Jordan Alexander Sanchez, Bryon Arce, Bobby Karman, Stephanie Butler, Tristain Pelton, Chase Burnett, Diana Kraus, Raven Mitz, Satanic Aries, Ness69420, also Aisodoehtraed, Pain, Nessie, Blitzscreed, BardoHawk764, Melancholy Corpse, Ferb, Harley, Billy Morrow, Madam Skullbunny, Sashi Sazaku, @Grizzly Olsen Pro, Kayden the Spooky Boy, Zane Nightshade, My Body Sounds Like Rice Krispies, Ashwood, Lord of the Weebs, Jay, Faye Lockett, Miss Sander, Mr. Unsettling Spaghetti, Suji Campbell, Azarine Fox, Robert White, Fried Chicken 12, James Bruce, Freddy Krueger, Ty Nanny, Michael Scarborough, Infernal One, Lisa Cottrell, Caspian, Jordan Nels, Hades Nephew, Tater Chip, Acid System, Prozac and Pancake Appreciation Society, Cryptic Nightmares, Kiri the Sloth, Tommy Green, Liam Newman, Sky Harbor, Caleb Dougal, Nina Smith, Nico Kyle, Rafael Rodriguez, The Ginger Bros, Aaron Stormcrow, Daniel Polson, Trace Miles, and Corey Kenshin. Once again, thank you all so much to everyone who is in this list of names that I mispronounce, and everyone who's in the description, and everyone who supports me at patreon.com/MrCreepyPasta. I can't thank you guys enough for listening, for watching, and I wish you all sweet dreams. Good night, everyone.